My name is Jack Reynolds. I am 44 years old, and for over a decade, my life has been defined by the road, specifically the asphalt ribbon beneath the wheels of an 18-wheeler. I'm a long-haul trucker. It's a job of solitude, of endless hours fueled by bad coffee and worse sleep. But it pays the bills, and for 12 years, it paid for the life I shared with Claire. I've spent half my marriage weeks on the road, sleeping in a cab that smells like diesel and sweat. I missed 10 straight Thanksgivings, 4 of our anniversaries, and countless birthdays. Why? To keep the money flowing. To make sure Claire had a comfortable 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood, never had to worry about a car payment, and could buy whatever she wanted at the mall. I was providing. That was my vow, and I honored it with every grueling mile. I remember meeting her. She was working as a waitress in an all-night diner off I-80. Claire was beautiful. All golden hair and bright, restless energy. She saw the work ethic in me, not the dirt. She used to call me her hero, bringing home the bacon. The early years were honest, hard, and good. But those years are gone now, replaced by a distance so profound you could park a semi in it. The shift started about 5 years ago, right after she befriended that group of women at the yoga studio downtown. They were different. Wealthy, polished, all married to lawyers or business owners who wore suits and golfed on weekends. Suddenly, Claire's world wasn't mine anymore. It was expensive brunches, designer bags, and whispered conversations I wasn't meant to hear. I quickly learned my place. When I'd walk into a room after a 10-day run, still wearing my work boots and dusty jeans, they would fall silent. They compared their husbands' investment portfolios to my driving job with subtle, poisonous glances. Claire, who once swore she loved the ruggedness of my hands, began criticizing our house, complaining that the sight of my massive truck in the driveway was trashy. Her conversations with me became transactional. "Did you deposit the check?" she would ask. "I need $300 for a shopping trip." The warm greetings were gone. The intimate moments disappeared entirely. She stopped asking about the road or the mechanical problems I fixed to save money. She was simply using my labor to fund a lifestyle she was ashamed to admit I paid for. Despite the screaming warning signs, I held on to the vows. I worked overtime, deposited every cent into our joint account, and saved diligently. I had managed to accrue $47,000 over the years, money I dreamed of using to buy a better house, maybe start a small hauling business. Claire knew about the savings, but she hadn't mentioned future plans with me in over a year. The chapter of my ignorance closed with her announcement. "A girl's trip to Miami," she said. "It's just for 4 days, Jack." Her eyes were bright, too bright, filled with a giddy anticipation that hadn't been meant for me in years. A wave of unease, cold and heavy, washed over me, but I swallowed it down. I wouldn't be controlling. I agreed, even handing her 2 crisp $100 bills. "For emergencies, Claire," I said. She took the cash without meeting my eye. I dropped her at the airport at 5 a.m. the next day, right before my next long haul. I watched her walk away through those sliding terminal doors. She never looked back. I told myself it was just exhaustion twisting my gut. I was wrong. 2 days into Claire's girls' trip, I was parked at a grimy rest stop outside Dayton, Ohio. The glow of the dashboard clock read 2:47 a.m. I was trying to snatch a few hours of sleep before making an early delivery to a warehouse south of Columbus. The cab was cold, and the familiar vibration of passing semis was the only sound. Then the phone rang. It was Claire. I answered, a low knot of dread tightening in my chest. The background noise that slammed into my ear was immediate and overwhelming. Pounding electronic music, drunken laughter, and the sharp, bright clinking of glasses. She was clearly wasted, her voice thick and slurred, riding a wave of cheap champagne confidence. "Jack," she giggled, the sound like glass shattering. "Guess what, baby? I'm done. I met someone better." The silence in my cab swallowed the noise from Miami. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I simply listened to the sound of my life being ripped apart over a poorly connected cell phone line. She kept talking, the words tumbling out, laced with a cruel, entitled joy. She told me about Marco, a restaurant owner who had real money and a yacht, not some smelly rig. She'd already slept with him. It was better, she said, than being stuck with you, you boring, pathetic delivery boy. The insult wasn't just about my job. It was about my entire identity. She accused me of being nothing but a wallet for the last decade. Always gone, always absent, too tired and callous to be a real husband. "You've been a ghost, Jack," she sneered. "And Marco makes me feel alive." Then I heard them, her friends. They were cheering, a cacophony of shrieking validation. One voice, high and vindictive, yelled, "Finally! You deserve so much better, Claire." Another shouted, "Tell him you're taking the house." They hadn't just tolerated her infidelity. They had manufactured it, coaching her for years, waiting for this moment of vicious vindication. Claire, emboldened by their toxic support, launched into her final threats. She mocked the house I'd paid for, the furniture I'd bought, even the way my hands looked after a day of fixing my own engine. "I'm taking half, Jack, maybe more, since I sacrificed the best years of my youth waiting for your truck to come home." She actually laughed when she mentioned Marco couldn't believe she was married to a truck driver. My hands, the hands that built her a life, were shaking so violently against the phone they threatened to drop it. My knuckles were white, my jaw locked. I didn't interrupt. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I recorded every word in my mind, the alcohol-fueled cruelty and the undeniable, calculated nature of her betrayal. I allowed her to empty the entire reservoir of her malice. I needed the full, unedited truth. When she finally paused, expecting the heartbroken pleas, the screaming, the emotional collapse, I spoke. My voice was low, flat, and chillingly devoid of emotion. "Have a good trip, Claire," I said. Then I hung up. For 20 minutes, I sat in the cab's complete silence. The dashboard lights seemed far too bright. Outside, the headlights of the passing traffic dissolved into streaks of meaningless color. My entire marriage, every sacrifice, every missed holiday, every one of those $47,000 saved, all dissolved into the sickening sound of Marco's name. The cold shock was overwhelming, a physical paralysis. But then the deep, agonizing hurt that threatened to shatter me began to crystallize. It didn't turn to white-hot anger, but something far colder and much sharper. I wasn't going to be the pathetic victim she wanted to mock. I wasn't going to let her and her friends celebrate while they stripped me bare. My life was built on planning, on logistics, on moving heavy loads where they needed to go. And I was about to apply those skills to domestic warfare. I reached for the work notebook I kept for fuel logs and maintenance schedules. I flipped to a clean page. I didn't start listing my sorrows. I started making a list of actions. She wanted to take everything from me, but she forgot one crucial detail. She'd given me full access to everything we had, and I was about to use it. At 3:15 a.m., in the silent, freezing cab of my truck parked in an Ohio rest stop, the final agonizing phase of being Jack Reynolds, the betrayed, absent husband, ended. I was acting not from blind rage, but from a cold, lethal clarity. Claire wanted a war for assets, but she hadn't accounted for the logistics. She was drunk on champagne and arrogance in Miami. I was sober, miles away, and I held the keys to the entire operation. The first move was securing the finances. That $47,000, every extra load, every skipped meal, every birthday missed, represented my freedom. Using my phone's banking app, I bypassed the joint account security and, with a few taps, initiated a transfer. The entire sum moved to a new personal account I'd opened months ago, never expecting to use it, at a separate credit union across town. Scorched earth. Every penny of my earned income was now protected. I immediately screenshotted the transaction history, the deposit logs, and the account statement showing that Claire's income contribution since her early retirement had been a perfectly round zero. Next, I severed her connection to the outside world. At 4 a.m., I called the cell phone carrier. The representative, bleary-eyed and bored, was the perfect witness. "I need to remove a line from my family plan," I said, my voice steady. "The line belonging to Claire Reynolds. Please cancel it entirely, effective immediately." The young woman paused. "Are you sure, sir? There might be a termination fee." "I am certain," I replied. "She won't need it anymore." Click. Claire's lifeline to her friends, to Marco, and to the arrogance that fueled her betrayal went dead. By 5:30 a.m., just as the sky was turning a sickly gray over the Ohio horizon, I had locked down the credit. I canceled every card linked to our joint account, the Visa she used for her yoga retreats, the store cards she used to fund her friends' expensive shopping trips. No grace period, no warning. When Claire woke up in Miami and reached for her wallet, she would find nothing but plastic bricks. I still had a delivery to make. I drove the last 2 hours on pure adrenaline, the only emotion left being an icy, calculated focus. At 9 a.m., after signing the last shipping manifest, I walked directly into the office of Hannah Thompson. I'd found her firm months ago during a particularly bad argument with Claire when I dared to dream of peace. I sat in her plush, quiet office and handed her my phone. "Listen to this," I said. I played the voicemail I'd saved. I had actually redialed Claire's number and let it go to her voicemail just to capture the background noise and her slurred, arrogant words a second time before hanging up. Hannah, a sharp-eyed woman in a charcoal suit, listened to the whole brutal confession without expression. "This makes things straightforward, Mr. Reynolds," she said, placing the phone down. She admitted to adultery, abandonment, and coercion on a recorded call. In this state, that affects asset division significantly. And since you can prove all marital assets came solely from your income," she smiled, a thin professional smile that promised pain for the opposition. "I hired her on the spot, providing a $5,000 retainer from my newly secured account." That afternoon, Hannah filed for divorce, citing adultery with evidence, and requesting an emergency financial restraining order to prevent Claire from claiming immediate support. The papers were set to be served to Claire's parents' house, her legal residence outside of mine. That evening, as I continued my route through Pennsylvania, I made the final 2 calls. First, the locksmith. I scheduled new locks and a new code for the alarm for the day I arrived back. Second, my landlord. The lease was in my name alone. I informed him that Claire was no longer authorized to reside at the property. Documentation was emailed immediately. I parked for my mandatory 10-hour rest in Virginia that night. My phone had 17 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, probably Marco or one of her increasingly desperate friends. I ignored them all, powering the phone off. I slept better that night than I had in years. 3 states away, in a Miami resort, Claire's fantasy was about to become a nightmare. I kept my phone off for the duration of the ride home, ignoring the furious, impotent signals radiating from 3 states away. The details of what happened in Miami didn't come from some dramatic narrative. They came to me in fragments. The terrified whispers of her friends in saved message transcripts, the time-stamped records of her phone calls to the bank, and the final broken voicemail I allowed myself to hear. It was the perfect, controlled detonation. The first crack in her facade appeared when Claire tried to buy lunch at a beachside cafe. She reached for her wallet, already planning the perfect smug photo for her social media. Her credit card declined. She laughed it off, pulling out the Visa she used for her endless yoga retreats. Declined. In the tight circle of her friends, Jessica, the ringleader, and Sarah, the timid follower, the laughter died instantly. They understood the brutal, final language of finance. Claire tried to access her bank app on her phone. Nothing. Just a dead screen, a cold, dark void where her lifeline used to be. Jessica paid for the meal, but her gaze was sharp and unforgiving. "You can pay me back later, Claire," she'd said, the friendship suddenly replaced by a debt collection. Back at the resort, the full realization hit her like a fist. Using the room phone, she called the bank. The automated voice delivered the verdict. Account closed at the request of the primary account holder. She called the phone carrier. "This line has been terminated." The credit cards, canceled by authorized user, Jack. It wasn't a glitch. I had known, I had waited for her to step onto the stage of her new life, and then I had cut the ropes. She tried calling our home number, disconnected. My personal cell, a generic full inbox voicemail. Her composure shattered. Her friends were now huddled, not comforting her, but calculating their own escape. "Can't you just work it out with him?" one suggested weakly. But Jessica, ever the toxic influence, hissed, "Don't grovel. You have Marco. He's loaded. This is just a test." Marco was her last golden hope. The next morning, abandoned by her friends who had suddenly had to check out early and booked flights without her, Claire showed up at his restaurant with her designer luggage. The man who met her was Marco, but not the man from the yacht fantasy. He was sweaty, wearing a stained apron, juggling 3 menus in a chain seafood place. He was the night manager, not the owner. There was no yacht, no mansion. He had been lying spinning fantasies to impress lonely tourists like Claire. "Look, you're cute and all, but I'm married," he muttered, gesturing to a tired woman behind the hostess stand. "My wife and I, we have an understanding when tourists come around, you know? But showing up at my work, that's crazy. Stranded." With her luggage outside a fake Italian restaurant, Claire's world imploded. No money, no phone, no husband, no friends, no fantasy lover. The hotel demanded payment for the extra night she'd stayed. When she couldn't pay, they held her bags until the bill was settled and told her to vacate the premises. For 3 days, she became desperate, begging strangers in business lobbies and gas stations for a minute on their phones. She even walked into a police station, filing a ridiculous report about stolen credit cards, which the officer dismissed instantly after checking the records, legally canceled by the primary account holder. Her fall was magnificent and total. The messages she managed to leave me grew progressively unhinged. First, a slurred fake apology, then pleading promises of change, next, vicious threats, and finally, raw, broken sobs. I listened to exactly 1 full voicemail, the last one, choked with genuine terror. I then blocked every number she'd used, deleting the rest unheard. I didn't need to hear the sound of her falling. The silence of her absence was enough. But on the 3rd day of my drive, she found a way to reach me one last time. I was sitting in my cab in a Virginia lot, charging my phone, when an unexpected notification appeared. A voice-over IP call from a hotel business center, labeled only as private number. I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. That call would be the last word between us. I was parked outside a battered classic Tennessee diner, the air thick with the heavy scent of old coffee and frying grease. It was late morning, and I was finishing a stack of pancakes that tasted like cardboard. My phone, plugged into the truck's dash, buzzed, a voice-over IP call from a Miami area code I hadn't specifically blocked yet. It was labeled only as private number. I knew. This was it. The final, unavoidable confrontation, and I was going to control every second of it. I considered letting it ring out, leaving her stranded in the digital void I'd constructed for her, a nameless, voiceless tragedy. But a strange, cold need for closure, for the final word, made me swipe the screen. "Hello?" I said. My voice was calm, almost bored. "Jack, please, oh my God, please listen to me," she pleaded. It was Claire, but not the confident, sneering Claire from the drunken call. This voice was raw, hoarse from crying, scraped clean of all her polished arrogance. It was the sound of true, desperate terror, and the sound of it confirmed everything I'd done was justified. I didn't speak. I let the silence on my end force her to fill the void with truth, and she did. She unraveled the whole pathetic tapestry of her fantasy in a single gasping torrent. Her friends, Jessica and Sarah, had abandoned her the moment her credit cards died, booking separate flights and leaving her with the hotel bill. Marco wasn't the owner. He was the night manager, a low-rent liar who had already moved on. She'd spent the last night sleeping on a plastic-smelling couch in a cheap youth hostel, and the resort had taken her designer luggage for unpaid bills. "I love you." "Jack," she pleaded, the words sounding hollow and rehearsed. "I never stopped loving you. It was the alcohol, it was Jessica, they were manipulating me. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Please, I just need to come home. We can work through this. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I'll be better. I promise I'll be better. I squeezed my eyes shut. My hand was shaking again, but not from fear, from the intense internal struggle. The old Jack, the one who loved her for 12 years, the one who believed in second chances and rescue, flared up, demanding I put out the fire. Forgive her. Save her. But then, the memories hit back. The laughter in the background of that first call. The way she'd called me a glorified delivery boy. The casual cruelty when she said I was nothing but a wallet. The part of her that used me as a stepping stone. That woman was real. The sobbing victim on the line was just a performance triggered by inconvenience, not remorse. Are you listening to me? Claire demanded, her voice spiking with sharp desperation, the victim turning back into the accuser. Jack, I'm sorry. What more do you want? You've made your point. You've punished me. Now help me get home so we can fix this. That was the breaking point. The word punished. She still thought this was a temporary timeout, a severe lesson that would end with her rescue. She believed I would eventually fold, forgive, and take her back into the comfortable cage she tried to escape. She didn't grasp that I had already burned the cage down. Claire, I said quietly, a sound that cut through her hysterics and made her instantly silent. I want you to listen very carefully. You're not coming home. There is no home for you to come back to. What are you? Her breath caught, her desperation turning to raw confusion. The locks are changed, as of yesterday morning. I'm looking at the locksmith's invoice right now. New deadbolts, new keys, new security code. Your name is off the lease. The landlord has documentation that you're not authorized to enter the property. I delivered the facts like legal filings, dry and clinical. You can't do that. That's my house too, she shrieked, the wounded sound of a cornered animal. Check the lease, Claire. My name, my signature. Always has been, I replied. I could hear her struggling to breathe, hyperventilating, the frantic, shallow breaths loud on the line. The divorce papers were filed 3 days ago, I continued, pressing the advantage, not letting her recover, citing adultery with recorded evidence. Hannah Thompson, my attorney, is very good at her job. You'll be served at your parents' address. Don't bother contesting it. You admitted everything on a recorded line. Jack, please, she sobbed. The $47,000 in our account. Every dollar came from my paychecks. I have 12 years of deposit records proving it. You won't see a penny, I answered. She was sobbing uncontrollably now, gasping between words. I can't. I don't have any way. How am I supposed to... That, I said, feeling the finality of the statement settle like cold stone in my chest, is no longer my problem. You wanted better than me. You found what you thought was better. This is what better looks like. Jack, I'm begging you, she cried. You're dead to me, Claire. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't try to contact me. We're done. Forever, I said. I hung up as her desperate scream of my name echoed from the speaker. I placed the phone gently on the dash, my hands shaking again, but this time it was from the sheer emotional release of severing the limb. I sat in my truck in that Tennessee diner parking lot, and for the first time in years I wasn't carrying the weight of a dying marriage. I could breathe. I was free. 3 months passed, like highway miles, steady, inevitable, carrying me further from the wreckage of my marriage. The air in the cab, once heavy with loneliness and resentment, began to feel lighter, just the familiar smell of diesel and the road. The man who had been defined by his absence and his wallet was finally driving for himself, for his own future. The divorce proceeded with the brutal efficiency Hannah Thompson had promised. Claire never contested the filings. She never showed up. She had burned all her bridges in that final hysterical phone call. Her parents' lawyer, a local shyster who sent a few blustering letters, fell instantly and completely silent the moment Hannah responded with the transcribed and recorded confession from Miami, along with the detailed financial records proving Claire's total lack of contribution to the $47,000 savings. There was no case, no leverage, no way back for Claire. The legal proceedings were just a formality, confirming a reality she had established that drunken night. I sold the house, the modest 3-bedroom symbol of my 12 years of sacrifice. Too many ghosts, too much echoing emptiness. I bought a small, neat condo near my company's hub. One bedroom, a modern kitchen, and a narrow balcony overlooking the constant, reliable flow of the interstate below. I paid cash for the place, still having a significant chunk of my secured savings left over. It suited me. No expectations, no silent judgment embedded in the walls. My work routes didn't change, but my perspective did. The exhausting guilt that used to gnaw at me, about being away, about not providing enough, about being an insufficient husband, it was gone. I was building Jack Reynolds, a man accountable only to himself. The change wasn't dramatic. It was gradual, the slow, honest warmth of a morning sun. It happened at a truck stop outside Indianapolis, a regular Wednesday stop. The restaurant attached had decent coffee, a comfortable booth, and a waitress named Sarah. She was around my age, maybe a few years younger, with kind eyes and an easy smile that seemed genuine, not professional. She had seen me over the years, never knowing the details, but noticing when the wedding ring vanished and when the haunted look in my eyes started to recede. One Wednesday morning, she brought my coffee before I asked, remembering exactly how I took it. Black, no sugar, long haul from Kentucky, I admitted when she asked about the fatigue in my eyes. But I'm good. Better than I've been in a long while. We talked. Simple conversations. She mentioned she'd been working there 7 years, saving money to buy a small house for herself and her teenage son. She understood the rhythm of a working life, the value of consistency, the honesty in getting up every morning and doing a hard job. She didn't judge my calloused hands or my work boots. She saw the man, not the career. 3 weeks later, I asked her out. It felt terrifying. She said yes. Our dating was slow, careful, two people who had been hurt before and knew the value of taking their time. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became walks in the local park. We talked about real things, kids, work, dreams, and the scars of past failures. Sarah didn't need me to be rich or polished or anyone other than exactly who I was, an honest man rebuilding his life. One evening, sitting on my new condo balcony, watching the constant stream of trucks pass on the highway below, Sarah rested her head on my shoulder. The noise of the traffic was a comforting hum, a reminder of the life that was mine. It was then I realized, this is what love is supposed to feel like. Easy, respectful, built on shared truth instead of a fragile, expensive illusion. I was free, and that freedom had delivered something far better than the marriage I'd mourned. The divorce papers arrived on a rainy Tuesday. I signed them without hesitation. The marriage was legally over, and the final piece of that painful puzzle fell into place. But the real, cold, poetic closure, the ultimate justice I craved, came that same afternoon from a completely unexpected source. The divorce finalized on a rainy Tuesday in October, 6 months after that devastating phone call from Miami. The weather outside matched the grim predictability of the entire process. I signed the last papers in Hannah Thompson's office, which smelled faintly of coffee and old books. It wasn't the cathartic scene of a courtroom drama. It was clinical, quiet, and profoundly anticlimactic, just a handful of signatures on legal documents, officially ending 12 years of my life. No alimony, no asset division, no ridiculous fight over furniture or pets. Just a clean severance, legally formalizing the break I had initiated months ago. "You're free, Jack," Hannah said, standing to shake my hand. Her grip was firm, professional. "I'd say good luck, but I don't think you need it. You made your luck." I returned to my small condo, poured myself a double glass of cheap whiskey, a far cry from the expensive liquor Claire used to insist upon, and toasted to absolutely nothing. The page was turned. The painful, ugly chapter was closed. 2 weeks later, the final details of Claire's downfall drifted back to me through the usual unreliable grapevine. Mutual acquaintances, former neighbors, and the periphery of co-workers who still had a social media connection to her old yoga circle. Claire did eventually make it back from Miami. Her parents, swallowing their pride and significant shame, bought her a single plane ticket after days of desperate pleading calls. She returned home to live in their small, cluttered basement at 38 years old. The friends who had cheered her betrayal, Jessica and the others, cut her off completely once they realized she had nothing left to offer. No money for brunches, no home to host parties, no high-status husband to validate their shallow group. They vanished, proving their loyalty was solely transactional. She works retail now, they said, scanning groceries at a discount department store in a strip mall I used to drive past. She'd cut her hair short, stopped wearing the expensive makeup. She looked older, tired, diminished. When I heard this, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no surge of vindication, and certainly no pity. She wasn't a source of anger or triumph anymore. She was simply someone who used to exist in my life, like an old photograph whose emotional resonance had completely faded away. She had simply moved to the consequences of her own choices. Life with Sarah continued its slow, deliberate build. I met her teenage son on a quiet Saturday afternoon, a cautious, gentle introduction in a public park. The boy was shy but polite, and I saw the protectiveness in Sarah's eyes, her careful evaluation of me. I respected it. We weren't rushing toward anything, just patiently assembling a foundation built on truth and genuine affection. Months stretched into a year. I still drove my routes, still parked at rest stops in the middle of the night. But now when I called home, someone answered who was genuinely happy to hear my voice. Someone who asked about my day not out of obligation, but out of quiet, consistent interest. She sent me photos of the cat she'd adopted, a silly license plate she saw, or a simple text. Dinner's waiting. Life wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, based on mutual respect and the value of hard work. And that made it more valuable than the grand illusion I had chased for 12 years. On quiet nights, parked at rest stops with the engine ticking as it cooled, I sometimes remembered that 2:47 a.m. phone call from Miami, the laughter in the background, the cruelty in Claire's voice, the moment everything shattered. And I was grateful, deeply, profoundly grateful, that I had found the strength to walk away instead of becoming smaller just to fit into someone else's contempt. The road stretches ahead, endless and full of possibility, and Jack Reynolds, the 44-year-old truck driver with calloused hands and a patient, battle-tested heart, drives forward into whatever comes next, finally free. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.